There we go.
Hello.
Hello. Nothing's working right. Gosh, I'm sorry. I've been battling my stupid computer for 20 minutes trying to get everything working.
Oh dear, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm using my son's computer and I end up having the same problems.
I don't know why it's not going through my microphone. It's going through my laptop, right? You're not hearing this?
Yes, I am hearing you. And it sounds good.
You're hearing it. So it's on that microphone? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just not getting it through my speakers. Usually when it doesn't go through my speakers or my headphone, it doesn't, and I can't even find a, oh, well, okay. If you can hear me, that's good enough. I guess I'll turn this off and.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get a weird loop or echo
Yeah.
for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yes, good. Thank you. It's been interesting today because my son's doing one of his first exams tomorrow, and it's a practical one, so everyone's been dashing around in the kitchen, and I said you've got to be out before 8 o'clock, so it's been a bit stressful. But it's fine now. It's fine
Good.
now. So if it's okay with you, I'll do a quick introduction for the podcast, then introduce you, and then we'll do our questions.
Sure. Give me a half a second. I'm going to re-let my dog back in so he's not barking, and then we can go.
Okay. What sort of dog have you got?
A stupid one. Is a 100% dumbass pit bull.
Oh, we're not allowed to have them in the UK.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, just because a bunch of stupid people treated them badly about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's fine. And then at the end, I'll do the official goodbye, and then I'll say goodbye normally, if that's okay.
Okay. Sure.
Now, I'm going to. I've got these ridiculous glasses that I'm afraid I have to wear due to my age.
That's fine.
It's just that they reflect everything, which is very annoying.
You know, you can get ones like mine that don't.
I will next time. I absolutely will. I got these before I started podcasting, and every time I look at myself, I just look in dismay and think, you look ridiculous. Right, okay. Hello and welcome to Paranormal or What podcast. I'm your host, Michaela Ford, and have we got a treat for you today? We have got Dave Schrader on the show. Hello, Dave.
And am I paranormal or what?
You are the paranormal person.
Abnormal, maybe. Paranormal, I don't know.
So, Dave has lived a life deeply entrenched in the paranormal, from early childhood visitations from his deceased grandmother to growing up in a haunted house, a Bigfoot sighting when he was 12, to UFO encounters over Trout Lake, Washington. That drove his passion to explore and research more. He tied his love of radio and the paranormal together, creating the long-running paranormal chat show, Darkness Radio, for 17 years, and now hosts the Paranormal 60 podcast. Dave has been the lead featured paranormal investigator on the television series The Holzer Files, Ghosts of Devil's Perch, and has been a guest on Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures 9 times, Ghost Adventures Screaming Room, Haunted Hospitals, Jack Osborne's Fright Club, and more. Wow, Dave. You
Can
are
I just have you follow me around and narrate my life? That was spectacular.
Good.
He's now entering the Dunkin' Donuts, where he hopes to get an iced coffee and a cruller. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I just think my life would be better with that kind of narration.
Well, you know, outside of teaching, I'm free to be hired.
All right.
Right, so this brings me to my first question.
Okay.
How much have your ideas on the paranormal changed during your journey where it comes to ghosts, aliens, and real monsters?
When I began this, like many people, my interpretations of them came from Hollywood books, TV shows like Sightings or In Search of or Unsolved Mysteries. And now kind of re-examining all of these different topics as I've grown over the last 17, 18 years of doing my podcast and radio show, I've learned that things can't be so neatly put away. You can't just say, this is a ghost, this is a cryptid, this is an alien, this is this. There seems to be many different shifting paradigms in all of these things. And I don't know that we'll ever truly be allowed to define any one thing. And anybody that gets too trapped in that sentiment of needing to have one definitive answer, I think is going to be extremely frustrated in this field, because I think the things that we're interested in and fascinated in have many different levels to them, and that there are different ways to examine each one of them. And as we learn more, like science, at one point we thought, well, to get rid of disease, we'll put leeches on you to suck away all the bad disease and the bad blood. And although it was on the right path, and we only found out centuries later that that's a good plan for some things, we've learned that there are other ways to adjust and deal with the type of things that and phenomena that exist in the real world. So the paranormal has shifted quite a bit for me. I don't necessarily believe we're dealing always with just dead granny. She died, her soul is left, and now it's wandering about aimlessly. I think there are different elements of the soul and the type of hauntings we deal with.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. The more that I've investigated, I have to say, the more I feel that things are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're connected, and then they're not easily packaged, right? You can say, let's look. Most likely aliens, cryptids, ghosts, angels, creatures like that may be more connected, because what they're a bigger part of is an interdimensional plane, which in a lot of belief systems, our soul leaves and enters a different dimension or a different plane of existence. Maybe these creatures have the ability to traverse back and forth. Maybe they've met us in these parallel universes. We've told them our stories, which is what fascinates them to come look into our existence. That sounds like the machinations of science fiction, but maybe we're a little closer to reality in those designs than we would normally give credit to.
Yeah. And I think it's quite comforting, because we're usually science and our field is usually so much at odds, but to know that scientists have discovered maybe up to 10 dimensions already makes you think, yes, this could actually be real. It could be what's happening.
I agree. Look, I mean, there's magic all around us. If you're watching this video of you and I talk, 1 second you're there, the next part of your head vanishes. Are you interdimensionally shifting, or are you just in a bad green screen?
Yeah.
Right? It's all up to one's perception of what's actually taking place. And it could be both things at once. We could coexist in multiple dimensions, which would explain why we sometimes have memories like deja vu,
Yes.
or precognitive memories, because living in multispatial time and duality of kind of consciousness can't be defined by science of where it exists. So maybe it exists through all of it. It's like the Ethernet experience that goes through all of our dimensions, and different aspects of us can plug into it. Like in our home, we have one router, but many different things coming into that router. And that may kind of be the way our consciousness works, so that we're having these experiences simultaneously. So once in a while, we are going to randomly pick up on the memories from the other planes or the other parallel universes or worlds. I don't know. I just love I love having the ability to kind of examine those and not just feel like an idiot thinking that, because I don't think we're meant to know any one thing definitively
Yeah.
when it comes to the miracles and magic around us.
Yeah. I'm definitely with you there. I think probably linear time is only one tiny aspect of the whole package, and maybe it will
Right.
slowly unfold in the future. And then we can sit on our clouds above and watch down as it all unfolds.
That's right. I'm hoping that eventually I realize I'm aging backwards, and that this moment right now will be gone, and soon I'll have hair and a thin stomach and children that don't talk back to me again.
That would be great. And maybe I will
Yeah.
wear glasses. Phew.
There you go.
Okay. Next question. Why do you believe that most of the spirit and ghost sightings seem so centered around the 1800s and early 1900s? Because you don't often seem to get a ghost that pops in from the 1300s. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it also is dependent upon where you live, right? In your country, you might see ghosts that predate what we experience here. There was a big change in the world here in the 1700s, 1700s, as we begin to settle it. But I think what's interesting is you look at these rises of spirituality, usually around times of civil unrest, the Civil War, the world wars. So you've got all of these different things that take place. And when there is this death that happens and people are cut off from their loved ones and friends and family, and they want to reach out, there was this glut of people going out to spiritualists, to mediums, to people that claim to have these abilities. What if we somehow ruptured that timeline by digging at it so often and calling forth so many of the spirits from that era, that maybe we actually created a chasm in space-time where we're more close to that moment because we called upon it so often? And we'll see that cyclically, play out. There are moments, I think, where we're going to see these fractions of time that we'll be able to witness what's going on. Perhaps they can witness us, because that time element is, we've talked about the thinning of the veil. Maybe it's because so many people have scratched at it. It's like a piece of fabric, right? The more you scratch at it, the more you wash it, the more the fabric degrades and falls apart. So through all this time of so many people scratching at that layer, scratching at that layer, scratching at that layer, it has gotten to the point where it's threadbare and we can see through it. It can see through to us and it makes its way in. We do have moments where we see contemporary ghosts, but those seem fewer and far between. Most of the time it's the women in the white dresses, gray dresses, men in suits and top hats, or, just kind of these elements out of time.
Yeah.
And that could be it. It also could be much like the string theory concept, that time is not linear. It's this big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey mess, like Doctor Who says, right? And maybe 1800 to 1925 happens to be laying over 2000 to 2050. And then eventually it'll undulate and change, and then we'll start to see the 50s or the 1300s. Pardon me. And that may be part of what occurs as we continue to experiment and look into this. Suddenly, all of a sudden, I'm allergic to this hypothesis I've posited. So I apologize.
I think
could
it's
be
a
my
sign
dog
that you're
is,
right.
Yeah, it could be my dog is sitting here scratching himself, kicking hair up in the air, and that very well could be what's really disturbing the elements.
I'm absolutely fascinated by what you said, because I hadn't thought of that at all. And now I'm going to have to go away after this and have a good think about it. So thank you for that, because I wondered whether it was something to do with whoever is in charge, if you believe that something is in charge, some higher power. I wondered whether they had kind of imposed time limits on how long you could be allowed to come back for after death. And then after that, you fade away and only residual hauntings remain. But I like your theory better, definitely.
Well, and it could be that things shift and change constantly, right? And there are places where they've seen Roman gladiator spirits, and maybe Bigfoot is nothing more than a glimpse at Neanderthal man or some other missing link we're unfamiliar with. And that's why they can be there one second, gone the next. They're having that physical moment briefly in our realm, and then they vanish to us, but they're still there. And are we the ghost to them? Are they walking along and they see a car zip by and they're like, what the hell was that? And they have no concept to what's taking place. You look through history and time, and there's a lot of strange art, a lot of strange things that even the cave people left that show interesting things that make you question what was it that they were experiencing at that time.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be a bit scary thinking about it. Is there anything that frightens you at this point on your journey with the paranormal?
The one thing that frightens me is that, well, obviously, the ego aspect of it's all, I'm getting it all wrong. That's terrifying. You'd hate to think that that's the case, but the things that frighten me now are the fact that, what if I'm leaving something behind? What if I'm leaving someone behind? Or what if I'm calling them in only to kind of strand them because I don't know the proper protocol? I know to call and conjure to necromance them into our realm. And then once they get here, how do we properly send them back? And have we, as paranormal investigators, have we called forth spirits that may end up being trapped or lost and unable to find their way back? So that's more of what really scares me at this point in my career is I don't want to be doing more damage to the spiritual world than I am doing good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I suppose if you think of it like that, it is a huge responsibility when you're out investigating, or even, inside houses investigating. If you have, yanked somebody out of where they were as a spirit, and you leave them there, that's a huge responsibility.
Right. And that's why I think we should take what we do seriously, not call upon spirits to just act out in a circus monkey way to satisfy our wants and desires. I've tried to change my thoughts to when I go to places, I want to see if I can bring help to these spirits, if there's something I can do for them, hearing their story, examining their history, addressing them by name, showing that respect that they're due in life as in death.
Yeah. My next question is, what's more likely? Do you think that locations are likely to be haunted, or the people within them, or both maybe?
Yeah, that's an interesting element, right? Everybody talks about, their kind of bucket list place to get into would be Amityville, to get into that house, right? On Ocean Drive. I don't believe that you would find something there because the strange thing is a brutal, horrific murder took place on that property, and there's really no evidence of the family returning, the DeFeo family. But you have George Lutz, who lived there, who is involved in transcendental meditation, calling things forward, experimenting with narcotics, putting him into multiple layers of altered states from not just metaphysical, but physical, spiritual, calling upon things. And according to his stepson, Christopher, he only found out later that the beings that George was calling upon were not beings of peace and love and change, but they were more the spirits of anarchy. I don't want to say evil spirits or dark spirits, but they definitely were not positive in nature.
Mm.
So did he then kind of curse his family by calling upon these energies that, like the monkey paw, that, with every wish there comes a curse. When you call upon things, there is an ultimate price that you pay. And did the Lutz family pay that price, dealing with what we perceive to be spirits and evil beings, when really what they were ancient elementals or jinn or whatever George was messing with? And there are many people that knew George and claimed that he was doing these things. So people have gone and said, "Oh, see, it was all flim flam, and it never happened because there was no complaints in the house afterwards." But yet there was an issue when they moved to California. They had to go through an exorcism. Why would they put themselves through an exorcism in order, to clarify themselves? They didn't sell any more of their story. They didn't, none of it continued on from that point, but they had to deal with it. They did. And, there was a derision in their life and a lot of family strife. And, I can't even imagine what it was like to be any one of the kids that lived through that and having your story play out on a movie screen and played back on TV every Halloween. And, they're haunted by that. They're haunted by a history they didn't create. So there's different elements to what is a haunting. I think sometimes a location is so scarred from the things that took place there, from the people, the land, and the blood that's been spilled, that you would tend to believe that there's something there more than just somebody's imagination. But sometimes we carry our own baggage, and I often wonder if a lot of the spirits that follow us are just iterations of us. Are they past live incarnations that are still with us? They're the backpack of our experiences packed in there, and sometimes they make themselves known, and they go on walkabout. They want to get out and experience this world briefly and see what's going on, which may explain why we have strange dreams of things we don't know about, because the spirit, the consciousness, has left and gone and looked and searched these things out and come back. And that may explain how people have had, Da Vinci being able to contemplate planes and create things. Maybe it was an iteration of Da Vinci that's in Orville Wright, or in Buzz Aldrin. So there's this elevation of who we are that continues on and continues to revisit all of our incarnations.
Yeah, interesting. It's quite a sobering thought, isn't it? If you thought that all the versions of yourself and all your relatives are constantly following you around, and you have got this big troop of people with you, no wonder sometimes you don't feel like you're alone. Right. I think we ought to follow the old adage as well: be careful what you wish for, because all the folk stories and fairy tales all warn of these things. Be careful what you wish for. And I think sometimes paranormal investigators are so desperate to see something that they're reckless. Right. Yeah, I've heard people call out, "I'd sell my soul to have an experience," and I don't care if it's a demon, I don't care if this. And you put that out there, that's a calling card. And just for the universe to know, that was not me calling it upon me. I was simply reciting what I've heard other people say. But you put yourself out there. Words have power, right? Intention, manifestation has power. And if you're putting that out there, sometimes you're going to get a spiritual ass kicking, because that's kind of what you're asking for. Yeah. So to sort of continue the idea of people or locations or objects being haunted, what thoughts do you have on haunted artifacts, such as dolls, possessed dolls? What do you think about those sorts of things? Like, there's a very famous person who has a haunted museum with apparently the souls of people trapped within these artifacts. What do you make of all that? Is it truly haunted, or is it something that just meant something to someone? We hear about jewelry really holding it. Well, it makes sense. If jewelry is something that's important to us, our wedding rings, our bracelets, our necklaces, things that are given to us out of love in times of distress. We create a necklace to remember our mother who's passed away. We create this, we create that.
and we bond ourselves to these pieces. They become a part of who we are. So is there an essence to that? Is there a collection point of a piece of us in all of this? Not necessarily a consciousness, but like a file of facts that's left behind that could be tapped into. Um, I would hate to think that, you know, you bought my old riding lawnmower and all of a sudden weird stuff starts happening in your house and it's attached. It turns out I'm haunting my old lawnmower. How depressing would that be? That like in the afterlife, I'm like, man, if I could just get on that Toro one more time, right? It's so ridiculous, but there's an element of it. You know, to my father, I could see that. He's my dad is Zen when he mows his lawn. Perfect lines, it's geometric patterns. He's very into it and it means something. So I could see there being an essence of him, but not him as a fully formed being, but that piece that he leaves behind of himself. Dolls, you know, I mean, the concept that things can possess an item. You know, again, if I had the choice as a free flowing spirit to say I could wander the world or I can put myself in this mason jar, it seems ridiculous to me. But maybe what happened is an element of that child remains with that doll because of what that doll represented to them at the time. Maybe sometimes it's more negative because that child clutched that doll close to them as their parents fought in the other room and the screaming and the yelling, or the child kind of embedded itself into that doll to get away from other horrific things that happen to children. And that's what's left. That little broken, fractured piece of the soul is still what's there. And that's why it's so negative. And you think, well, but that was owned by a little girl. Why would it be evil? Why is there something dark around it? Again, because we don't know the backstory of the person that owned it. Did they imbue it with evil to protect themselves? Did they call forth a demon and bind it to this item? I don't know that we have that kind of power. But what I do believe is that we influence the things around us. Have you ever just had a really crappy day and everything you touch just falls apart? I'm getting crappy connection on my internet. My phone's not working. I keep trying to send text and it keeps auto correcting the words that don't even make sense. And I often wonder if that chaotic, that energy, that's the poltergeist energy. That's that, you know, anarchy energy that exists. And it unleashes in times of high stress and we do impact and affect the things around us. So can an item be haunted, possessed? I don't know. I would find it would be stupid of a demon to bind itself to a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah.
Because to what end? If it can't get up and walk around, you know, maybe a G.I. Joe, at least it's got bendy parts, but Raggedy Ann, right? Annabelle, she's just a big floppy rag doll.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that sounds like I'm making light of it, but I'm not saying that the Warrens were wrong or that the family that turned over the doll to the Warrens were wrong. Maybe there was something attached to it, but what did that thing really mean? You want to call it a demon because there's something scary, but what did that child see? What did that child experience that they embolden upon that item? And I know that sounds dark to say something like that, but sometimes that's how people deal with it. And you wonder, you hear later, oh my God, Dave lived through what? He had to do what? They did what to him? And how is he so even keel and kind of normal now? Well, maybe that's because I put so much into something that is poisoned, but I'm not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
the
I like.
psychometry element of something. Look at, we existed for centuries, millennia without one of these, without a cell phone. Now we can't imagine having it away from us for more than a few minutes at a time, right? How many of these suckers, thankfully most of them are getting destroyed, crushed down, and put into, new equipment or turned into kids' playgrounds. Does that mean they're going to be haunted playgrounds in the future because we were so frustrated with our phones and we've imbued them with that? But we become dependent on things, and they become part of who we are, how we identify ourselves. And if something means something more to you than others, I could pick up this phone that belongs to you and I can go, I'm, I'm getting like a really cold sensation, like I'm in Minnesota. Oh my God, yeah, that guy that owns it lived in Minnesota. It was freezing there all the time, right? And you're picking up those elements of who that person is, but not the person themselves. More like the trace elements, the what's left behind, the shadows or echoes of what we are or were in the physical plane.
Well, I hope you're right, Dave, because the thought of a haunted mobile phone really scares me.
Oh, they haunt us already. Although, let me throw this at you. Here's something interesting. When you've had dreams, have you dreamt about being in a car?
Yes.
Have you worn shoes in your dreams?
Oh, I don't know.
Right? Well, most people have, or your outfits, or you recognize friends, you
Yeah.
dream about school. This is such an important thing to us in our lives, but not many people dream and have cell phones. Isn't that a weird element?
Oh, I never
Maybe
thought
I'm
of
wrong.
that.
Think about it. Think about all the dreams you've had. And I know I'm going to automatically have people that are listening to your show that are going to, well, I always have dreams about my cell phone. But that is one out of billions of people. I get that too. I get people that swear they dream about their cell phone and it's a part of their universe, but they're that fraction is so small compared to all the rest of us who dream and never dream about our cell phone.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I've never dreamt about my phone.
Right. But how important it is to us in life. I mean, we live on this. How is it not more of a part of our dream realm? And it just starts to show that maybe there are different elements of what maybe in those realms we understand what's more important. Maybe that's our awakened state. Maybe this is the entrance to the matrix, right? This form we think is the awake state is really the sleep state, and these are part of our dreams. The real world is what we're kicking around in when we think we're sleeping.
Oh gosh. Now you
Here,
are scaring me.
should I roll another one and we can
Yeah.
smoke it together?
So far away because I feel like I need to go down the pub with you.
No, hey, it's all about thinking outside the box, putting
Yeah.
out the thoughts and the questions, because you never know. I mean, it's these kind of conversations that might actually open up a dialogue where we do start to learn and push, and they find a way to test these theories.
So this leads me actually quite nicely onto my next question. As your experience grows in hunting ghosts and spirits, do you feel you understand them more or less than when you began?
I guess, well, that's a tough question, right? Because again, I came into this realm believing one thing. My grandmother died, her soul left, she hangs around to visit with me because she loves me so much. And that was that. Because that was my first experiences was seeing my grandmother after she passed. Um, but now I start to think that there are different elements to what a haunting is. So yeah, the soul, it's interesting. Some people will see a little girl's ghost that matches our grandmother's description when she was a little girl in her childhood home. But yet we see grandma's old woman ghost at the house she died in. How can that be? Well, something's a doppelganger, it's evil. Well, what did it ever do that was evil? Well, it's trying to replicate grandma as a child. And that's the extent of evil. So, I think it's, again, if you walk in a place of fear and believe everything's against you in a conspiracy, I think that's just the world you'll find. But I think if we look further into, okay, those are elements, maybe that house, and we talked to grandma loved living in Marinette, Wisconsin. My grandmother loved it. My grandfather loved it. And I could see them leaving a big part of that element of who they were behind, or visiting that era again as a ghost. Why not go back and visit your childhood home and maybe appear as you did when you lived there, right? Because it's tied to that. Maybe like a fingerprint lock. When you enter that area, the house recognizes you for the child you were, and that's what appears in that house. And I know that sounds really trippy because you're saying this house remembers me. I think inanimate objects have a level of consciousness, and science is saying that too. Google it. You'll see that science is starting to believe that inanimate objects may have an awareness or a consciousness. And that's pretty compelling. That's an interesting facet to exploring and understanding the bigger concept of everything. And if you were happy there and that house was filled with giggles and laughs and love and cuddles and squeezes, why wouldn't that make the house thrive as well? I think about it, I'm in a stressful place in my life, right? I'm mid 50s. I'm bald, I'm overweight, I've got smart ass teenagers, I've got this, things go wrong in my house. I'm shaking my fist at it. And then I think about how much more starts to go wrong. Maybe I just need to just be thankful. Hey, thank you, house. Thank you for giving me support over my head and keeping the rain off. And it sounds again stupid, but there are people that talk to their water, that talk to their drink and their food, and they inject it with positivity so that what they're ingesting is something that's positive. And again, for as insane as that sounds, science has done tests with water where people will talk positively to ice and then talk negatively to ice. And the negative is filled with fractures and cracks and feathering. And the positivity ones are clear. That's not Dave Schrader making that up. That's science examining how things work. The energy we put into things, it comes back to us. So if you put positive energy into what you're about to eat and drink, maybe that will fill that with the energy that you need truly to, be a nutrient. Monks would say that they eat the sunshine. They would take their spoon and imaginary eat the sunshine to bring the warmth and the glow, and they would live to be 90, 100 years old. Maybe there's an element to that makes sense. Maybe it's in what we put into a thing is what we take back out of it.
Yeah, I do agree with that completely. And it makes me think back to when I was a teenager, riddled with anxiety, as many teenagers are, with all sorts. I had all sorts of sort of weird OCD things that I used to do. And one of them was that I used to secretly say thank you to inanimate objects. I did it all the time. Like if I traveled on a bus, I would say thank you to the seat when I got up. If I bumped into a door, I'd say sorry to it.
Right.
And my friend just thought I was absolutely mad. And I think I did as well. But when you start thinking like that, you think, well, maybe I was just putting out it was a way of controlling my environment and a way of expressing myself. And maybe it isn't so crazy after all. Have you ever heard of it's a program called as in it's a book, it's a CD, it's a DVD, it's a movie, it's everything. It's called The Secret.
Sure. Right.
Yeah,
And I love The Secret. I've actually, though, what I studied and what I've learned is The Secret is one part of the lock.
Yes,
right.
definitely.
And what people don't realize is visualizing a good parking spot is a good, fun little trick to play.
I've done that.
And then you get there and boom, there's their parking space. But do you know what seems to work even better is not visualizing a parking space. What I visualize is a parking space close as I'm getting out of my car and walking into the mall, so that I take it there and beyond, seeing the fruits of the labor, seeing the benefits of the thing that I've created. When we were talking years ago about manifestation and intention, instead of just saying there's wildfires in California, let's focus on rain. And we did that. And it would rain, deluge, rain, but that caused mudslides, which caused mountains to collapse, houses to fall into the ocean. All right, let's send the manifestation this way. And again, for some of your listeners, they're going to be like, wow, this woo is way too out there. But I challenge you as a human being to try this for the next 45 days. When you think of something, think not of what you want, but what you will be once you've gotten it, right? The old fake it till you make it. Imagine there's fires raging all around. Don't just imagine the rain. Imagine the rain coming in and putting out the fires and stopping. And then the growth coming up, the new growth and new life and new energy that's being put back into that area. See the outcome that you want, not just, I want it to rain, because that's only one element of the secret. Want, wishing, whatever you want to call it, manifesting. To have a fully rounded relationship with your future and with what you truly seek, you have to see what you want clearly. You have to see getting there clearly, and you have to see what it looks like once you're there clearly. The more clearly, I think that's when you see people that are much more successful. They're driven because they see what the world would be like if they fix this problem, right? And they fix it, it changes the world, and they're billionaires because they saw further beyond just the problem and the immediate fix, without realizing that the immediate fix could be as devastating, if not more, than what the original problem was. You have to see so that you're seeing it on multiple levels, multiple dimensions, all projected out in front of you, and then the final outcome. So again, do that, practice that, see what you want. And I look at my life, and I was a kid. I wanted to be in radio. I saw myself at the microphone. I saw myself with people listening all around the world. I saw these things. It took me 40 years, 38 years to get there, but I got there. Life aligned itself. Things found itself in the right time. And you know what? It may not come when you want it, but it may come when you're ready for it. And I was ready for it at the age of 38. And I got this radio show. And I look and I thought, well, I'm getting the chance to do something I love. What should I talk about? How about the paranormal? All these TV shows are popping up, and there's really no radio show that's filling that niche market. There was a few: Ghostly Talk, Jim Harold's Paranormal Podcast, Night Watch, but that was about it. So when Darkness Radio came in, we were one of the first 4 or 5 out there doing it. And then it started to build from there. Now there's hundreds of thousands, if not a million, paranormal podcasts out there, right? But it was something that I married the two things I loved, my radio and my fascination with the paranormal. And it blew up into a position that put me on TV, put me in front of millions of people around the world on my podcast and on TV and with my book, and has allowed me to do the things I want. But not just because I wanted to write a book, not just because I wanted to be on radio. I saw what it looked like on the other side of that want. And that's why I believe I get 90% of the things I want in life. And then you got to look back at the 10% I didn't. And I think, yeah, but I didn't get this. And then you realize, well, I didn't get that. However, that car, they ended up pulling off the marketplace because it was exploding a lot. Right. So maybe it's a good thing I didn't get that car. So there are different elements that we don't always see the bigger picture. So the secret, I think, is a very powerful thing, but you have to know how to use it to your benefit, not just want, but see it all the way through.
I'll have a think about that, because you're not picturing far enough down the line at the moment.
Right. Right.
I just hope I live long enough to be able to fulfill my dreams.
Nope. See, there you go. There is no hope. There is just do, right? Very Yoda-like of me, I know, but oh, well, I hope no, just do it. Right. You can do it, right? You don't need me to believe in you, and you don't need all of your followers to believe in you. You just need to believe in you. And that's when you will get to where you need to go. It may be a bumpy ride, but you'll get there. I have no doubt. Why? Because I am a barely out of high school guy who barely managed a year and a half of college, but managed to maintain a lifestyle where I could pay for things and take care of I have 11 kids.
Oh my goodness.
So 11 kids between my wife and I, and ex-wives, and I'm taking care of them too. But yeah, I'm jesting, but the fact is that there's a lot to it all, and you have to be in that wherewithal. Listen, I'm in a dark place in life right now too. It's crappy weather out. It's gray. It's snowy. It's crappy. I'm questioning life's choices, things I've done. But sometimes I have to just remember that I've been here before. I've been in these dark places before, and it'll pass. I will find the light again. There will be something bigger, better. I just have to be ready for it. If I'm walking with my head hung, I'm going to miss that golden ring as it passes over my head. So my option is one of two things: focus down and hating my life, or continue to look up and look for that light, look for that brass ring, so that when it comes, I'm ready for it.
Right, I'm going to take your advice. Thank you.
Do it. Yeah. You deserve a good life. Everybody out there listening deserves a good life. And the problem is what we sell ourselves in a bill of goods. Many people out there have sold themselves on the fact that their life sucks and everything that they get sucks and breaks and is shit and it's never going to be any better. That's exactly what you're going to bring into your world.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bunch of hooey. That's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Really? Because a lot of people are succeeding in spite of it. And if you don't believe me, think about how many people you know that have a really good life that are really crappy people, that don't treat people right, but they see their future. They see where they belong and where they want to be, and they continue to get there. Right?
It's all about
So,
self-belief.
right. It's that not even if you don't believe it yet, just start acting as though you're there and you're getting there. Movement is the most important part of that journey, I promise you. Same with the paranormal. I don't just go in and wait for a building to come to life. I go in with expectations. That's why I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of seeing ghosts or goblins or demons. I'm putting myself in that position and I'm open for the experience. And because I put that out there and that intention and that manifestation, I get results.
Yeah. That's very good advice.
Thank you.
I'm going to watch this back afterwards and I'm going to take notes. I'm like, right now, what was it that Dave said?
He said, send Dave $19.95 to P.O.
Okay, so you've been on a lot of paranormal TV shows.
Sure.
Do you think it affected and impacted the way you investigate when you're not being filmed or on TV?
It has. I've learned to trim a lot of the fat of my time out so that I'm not just wasting time when I'm on a location. When you're on TV, you've got to have a direction. You've got to know what you're there to do. You got to know what you want to accomplish. So I pared a lot of that out of my real world as well. And that's not saying what I do on TV is not real. It is. It's just compressed. I get to the point quicker, and that's an important thing. So it's also given me, doing the TV show has helped to keep me focused on what are the right reasons. I'm not in it for a cheap thrill. I'm not in it to get scared. I'm not in it to do anything other than share experiences and try to help the souls that are there, hearing what they're saying, reacting to what they're doing and trying to help them, and understand that sometimes it may be really scary and there may be a scary moment that just happened. I get knocked on my butt. I can choose to run out, or I can stand up and go, all right, I get it. You're upset. What can we do to help you? What's the next step? You got my attention. I'm not walking away from you. I'm not leaving you like a petulant child who thinks if I just keep pushing, you're going to leave. Well, wait a minute. You're not leaving, and you care enough to listen. And sometimes that's what it takes. And then we get a name, and that story then opens up and we understand who it is we're dealing with, why they would be there. And then we make the promise to them. Our commitment to them is, I'm going to tell your story, and I'm going to make sure that people remember you for who you are, not for the story that has been told about you in the past. And sometimes that's all it takes to settle a spirit down.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that idea because a bit later I want to ask you about Devil's Perch.
Sure.
But this brings me on to sort of the idea of ghosts and spirits we think of as dead people. Have you come to terms with the idea of death?
You know, I've had fear of death my entire life. And I know that sounds silly, but I remember being 5, 6 years old and being afraid that I would not wake up in the morning. And that deeply impacted and affected me, left me terrified. And I've gotten to the point where I have a healthy respect of death. I don't want to get there too quick. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy the journey and I want to enjoy the things around me. So it's helped me have a better respect for death and just how precious life is, because sadly, every day we're reminded how quickly it can go. Right? Lisa Marie
Yeah.
Presley, 2 days, one day she's celebrating the Golden Globe win of Austin Butler portraying her father and doing this remarkable movie that showed Elvis in a new light and really kind of captured the essence and spirit of the man. And then 2 days later, she's gone. It just
Yeah.
shows, how fragile life is, and why we need to be cautious with how we live our life, and cautious with the way we treat people we care about and people that are in our lives, because you don't know their journey and you don't know what they're going through. And today I might be in a crap mood, but if I just take a few minutes to smile at that woman at the register and go, "Hey, you have a great smile. You look great today. I hope you have a fantastic day." That may be enough to put that person on a different path. Same with the spirits. I'm here. I care. I'm listening. I hope that what I'm about to do will be enough to help you.
Yeah. I guess that the hope is as well that when we come to make that transition, that we hope
Mhm.
that people will give us the same respect afterwards. Have you ever thought
Sure.
about where you think you might go after you pass over?
Yeah, here's what I believe. I believe we visit heaven and hell. And I'm hoping we spend a lot more time in heaven than we do in hell. In kind of understanding many of the different traditions from religions all across the world, not just Christianity, I do believe that there are different elements to these nirvanas, these lives between lives. And I think in my world, what hell will be is I will have to revisit the lives of every person I've hurt, every person that I discarded, treated poorly, bullied, mistreated. And I will have to live the life that they lived, meaning that I will probably have to live hundreds of lifetimes with that person. And maybe those are the spirits we feel over our shoulder all the time. It's the people that died that hurt us, that now have to live a life and see how that day of being a jerk impacted the rest of my entire life, and how that pain, it always plays out. And I think that that's my hell. So what I've decided was, if that's my hell, heaven will be getting to see all of the good things I've done, to see how it's impacted every life I've ever touched with positivity. And I'll get to live in that light, and I'll get to live in that joy and that happiness and that moment of of glee that hits and resonates, that they might not even think of Dave Schrader, but they're kind to somebody one day. They don't remember why. They just are kind to somebody that was in a bad place, and that joy and euphoria they felt. Well, you know what? I'd like there to be a lot more joy and euphoria ahead of me than anger and resentment. It's real easy to hate somebody. It's real easy to be angry and despondent, but it's just as easy to do something great and kind and compassionate and empathetic. And I would rather leave that journey in front of me than the other side, because if I got to relive all that hell and see and feel and do that, karmic justice, I think it's going to be an ass kicking for a lot of people. So let's do our best to live a life that we'll get to reward ourselves with when we pass, where we get to see all the great stuff we did for other people, not as a way to pat ourselves on the back, but a way to make the world a better place. And I know that sounds very utopian, but why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, sometimes I have to say things like that cross my mind, especially um I suppose you could say I suffer from road rage. I don't
Right.
really suffer from road rage. I suffer from an intolerance of really bad drivers,
Right.
because I love driving, and I was a chauffeur when I was younger, and it's something that I feel that I'm good at, and so I can comment on it. And so I do loudly in the car when people make silly mistakes, and
Right.
sometimes sometimes in the past I kind of shouted at people, I hope you crash your car or something like that. And then 10 minutes later, I think, oh, that was a really bad thing to think. I don't wish you'd crash your car. I'm sorry, but I wish I
Right.
hadn't done that. And
Right.
but you sort of think about these things. How is it going to come back?
But at least you did it in your car to yourself, and
Mm.
they weren't really mentally impacted by what you did or said. They didn't go, God, that person wanted me dead. That's a heavy weight. Somebody wanted me dead. And that's why I said, those moments of road rage, are you really angry at the way they're driving? Or are you kind of pissed off the rest of your day? And this is a good thing to vent about. This is a safe place to vent because you're in a little combined aluminum can that you can scream and yell. And they probably just think you're jamming along to Alanis Morissette in your car, right? Or whatever angsty musician is out there right now. So I think there's a difference in that. But again, yeah, that's cursing. You don't want to curse people either. But we're human, right? And I'd rather think for a few seconds, oh, right over a railing and brr. Okay, that's out of my system. Anyway, let's move on, right? And we can think all those horrible thoughts and feel all those horrible emotions and get them out without actually afflicting somebody else with that pain.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to turn 90 degrees now with my questioning.
Okay.
Sorry to everyone listening. This doesn't run on.
Nope.
It's just a separate thing. So I'm interested, and it's something that I'd really like to ask you, and just get on with it, Michaela. Sometimes I can't get my words out. So basically, my husband and my sons think that the paranormal is a load of bunkum. They think it's ridiculous, but they very nicely kind of tolerate me and pat me on the head as if I'm a bit disturbed every now and then. But do your family share your fascination, or do they think you're absolutely nutty too?
Yes, they share my fascination, and I'm sure they also think I'm nutty. But I also try to keep perspective. They may not have had the experiences I've had to put them in a place where they would think these things through this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now, is your husband and sons, are they footballers? Do they love watching soccer and football?
My husband does, but my sons are gamers.
Okay, all right, so perfect. To you, it's probably ridiculous to watch a bunch of grown men beating the hell out of each other to take a ball and run it down one end of the field or the other. What a waste of a day. You spent 3 hours watching a match that, one person scored, and you've lost 3 hours of your life. How stupid is that? And you just sat in your room 4 feet away from each other. You didn't talk to one another. You didn't play. You talk to strangers and give more of yourself to them than anybody else. That sounds insane to you and I, right? So I don't let it bother me. My kids love that I'm happy. They love that I do what I'm interested in. Some of them go along with me. They've all done it at one point, or my son Cliff went on a couple of ghost hunts. He's my oldest son. My daughter Jen, my oldest daughter's gone on some. My daughters Kayla and Pacey and Ripley have gone with me on paranormal investigations and to see cool things. My sons Nathan and Linus have gone on. It's not their life. They don't continue to necessarily do it, but it was fun. And you know what? I say that it's been probably 7, maybe even 10 years since my daughter Kayla went on an investigation, and I'm doing an event at Joliet State Prison in May. And she and her fiance are like, hey, Dad, do you mind if we come along? We'd like to tag along and ghost hunt with you. So it's not something that's always a part of their world, but I welcome them in and out as they please. But I'm sure there's things I do or I see or I experience that I think, oh, you're nuts, old man. But that's okay, because there's a lot of stuff they do that is not my realm of comfort or happiness, right? So, I mean, do you remember being a kid when video games first came out? You loved playing video games.
Yeah.
Could you imagine paying to watch other kids play video games?
No, it's ridiculous.
That's what people do now, and that's entertainment. But that's okay, because if that's what makes them happy and they're enjoying it, I'm not here to judge that. Just like you can judge me all you want, and you may think I'm a nut for going ghost hunting. What I'm doing doesn't destroy the environment. What I'm doing doesn't hurt people's feelings. What I'm doing doesn't take away from anybody's importance. It doesn't care what religion, what color, or what sexuality we are. It's the great evener. It's fascination with death and what comes next. It's the one thing that no matter what color our skin is, or what sexual proclivity we are, or what level in finances in our life, whether we're dirt poor or extremely rich, we're all interested. Even the skeptics would like some kind of proof that there's something else out there. So it's the great evener. So I'm cool with it. I've just let life happen, and here's the deal. I grew up in an uptight world. There was racism where I grew up, and homophobia and things like that. And maybe if I'd stayed in that bubble, I would be that guy. But being open to the world around me, I think I've experienced a lot more cool things and great friends because I wasn't caught up in how things are supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I feel the same about where I came from, and so I'm from the north of England, a place called Yorkshire, and my parents still live there, and my two half sisters and their families, and they're always saying, "When are you going to come back here? When are you going to come back here?"
Right.
And I say, "No, I'm not coming back there because I find it quite claustrophobic. It's quite tunnel visioned, and sometimes you do just need to get out and experience the world and open your mind."
Exactly.
Definitely. Now, so I'm going to pin you down now to, if you could choose one aspect of the paranormal or supernatural fields to dedicate your time to, and you weren't allowed to spend any time on the others, would it be ghosts, UFOs, or cryptids, and why?
Okay. Good question. I already believe in ghosts, and I believe in spirituality and that we exist beyond our physical form. And I've seen enough evidence of it. I believe that what we consider to be cryptids are only, as I say, zoological items were once cryptozoological until we found them. And then once we find them and we understand them, they become zoological. So I believe there's so many things, and we're discovering new species of insect and animal and bird and plant every year. So I can't define the fact that these beasts don't exist in some way. So I would really want proof. I would love to be brought aboard a spaceship. I would love to see the universe. I would love to, I'm even up for a little anal probing if that's going to further the experience for me and my captors. I don't know. That would be the one thing. If I could, I'd love to see that for myself up close and personal. Like I said, I've seen UFOs, I've seen things in the sky, but to have it land right there and to meet a being, especially if it's one of the benevolent beings that supposedly exists amongst us. Why wouldn't I want to meet that being? Why wouldn't I want to be one of the people that has a chance to bridge that gap between their world and ours?
Wow. So
Besides, that would also prove the existence to me of God, because there's so many miracles and majesties out there that if this is true and they're truly beings from another planet or even our future or our past, finding a way to come through to us now, that's awesome. That's exciting.
it really is. I've often stood out in my backyard at night and looked up at the stars and thought, I really want someone to come down right now in my garden so that I can meet them. And I imagine that I'd be really brave and I'd go over to meet them. And then 2 minutes later, I think, oh, no, please don't come. It's too terrifying. So I could go swings and roundabouts, but I am sure as well, I'm sure, like you, that there's definitely something and someone right under our nose that we don't know about.
I
Now,
agree.
I'm actually going to move on to one of your TV shows now, The Ghosts of Devil's Perch. We finally got it over here in the UK, and I binged watched the whole thing. So for people who haven't seen it, and I can't believe there is anybody, it's a series where Dave, Cindy Kaiser and KD Stafford investigate the historical mining town of Butte, Montana. my first question is, how did you first become aware of Devil's Perch and its incredible mass hauntings?
We were just, the city reached out to us and asked us to be a part of helping them. So it was their reaching out to the production company that brought it to my attention. And that's how we got to know it. And I don't mean to be, I don't mean to tease and bring you out. I do have to get going because I have another interview that I have to do as well. But it was an amazing experience to get to go to a town that it wasn't just centered around one haunting, one area, that the entire
Yeah.
town, the entire history of that town was haunted, that there was paranormal activity taking place from different layers in time, and that we were able to give voice to lost souls and give histories back to the spirits that have lost theirs. That to me is a gift. And that's one of the reasons that I'm proud to be a part of the field that I'm a part of.
Yeah. It was, so can we expect to see another series? Do we know yet?
I hope. I would guess if we go back into filming, it'll probably start in 2024. There's been a lot of change here in the United States at the Discovery Network because of their purchase of HBO and Warner Brothers, and they're trying to kind of allocate through all the products and projects that they have. So I've been told that, if things pop, we'll probably hear something early 2024.
Okay, so my final question is, what can we hope to see from Dave Schrader in the near future? Is there anything you can tell us about?
I'm traveling the world. I'm getting a chance to see and meet amazing people. I will be in the UK in September at the Festival of the Unexplained. You can look up festivaloftheunexplained.com. I will be there for a three or 4 day paranormal conference. I'm also doing a tour that I'll be there with a bunch of our listeners from the Paranormal 60 podcast, where we will be there traveling, seeing England, seeing haunted history, and getting a chance to go out there and explore this ourselves. So that's exciting to me. I'm super jacked and pumped about doing this, and can't wait to get back out there. So if your followers and listeners want to check darknessevents.com, that's the best way to keep in touch with me and find out where I'm going to be. And I'm going to be all over the world this year. We'll be in Egypt in February. I'll be in England in September. I'll be in Germany and Prague in July. And if your people are out there and about and want to meet, maybe we'll find ways to connect, or they can join me on these trips and get to see hauntings and histories in real life with me.
That's fantastic. Well, I am aware that you've got to get off, Dave. So I'll say thank you so much.
Thank you
for being on the podcast. And
my pleasure.
You never know. You may see in the crowd one day when you come over to England, little me going, "Hi, Dave, it's me." So
do it. Festival
hopefully.
of the Unexplained. Make it happen.
I will. Thank you ever so much, Dave. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Well, thank you very much for that.